973. Is it time to get Britain on a war footing economically? Jim Townsend, former Deputy Secretary of Defence for Europe and NATO under President Obama, joins me. Mr. Townsend, thank you very much indeed for coming on. Russia is hooked on military spending. In 2019, Russia spent 5 trillion rubles or 45 billion pounds on defence spending. Now it spends 17 trillion rubles, 41% of all government spending. We need to get real, don't we?
Absolutely. This is time for action and no more long meetings and a lot of wheel spinning. I think this is something where UK and Europe as well, Canada is also part of this equation, have got to come together in these meetings. That's going to be one on Thursday at the European Union. There's one, of course, here in London. Watching UK exercise leadership in Europe is a tremendous thing coming out of this crisis. It's heartening over here on this side of the pond to see the UK voice, not just Macron and not just others in Europe, but the UK taking leadership is a great thing. In terms of a war economy, absolutely. And I think your point about the ripple effect into the UK economy is absolutely right. We have seen that in the past. And I think this kind of push also will rev up UK society as well to leave the stagnation that you spoke of, both in terms of the economy, but also in terms of the UK people, to have this common goal and this emergency. There is no doubt there is an emergency now. UK steps up when there's an emergency, and I think that would be part of this ripple effect that you talked about. A new spirit in the UK.
A new spirit in the UK. That sounds very attractive and very much welcome. The war economy now makes up between 8% and 10% of Russia's GDP. And this was put by Alexander Kolinder of the Centre for European Policy Analysis. And I quote, "For a country that is waging war not on its own soil, that's a lot." To what extent should we be ramping up to those levels in major European economies?
Well, I think that's what we're going to have to do. And you know, this I understand where you mentioned all the trouble within the UK to come up with the money, at least to go to 3%, or 5%, which is what Trump is asking for, but to do it soon and not in 10 years or in 5 years. Frankly, I think we've got a 4-year window in terms of Russia, because Russia's time is now. While Trump is in the office, he'll strike now. So that we can't wait 8 years when it might be another government, or it's got to be done now, understanding the sacrifice that certainly will be there, whether it's the UK or in France or Germany or other places. Politically, this is hard. But the leadership in these capitals have got to be to turn to the people and say, we have done this before in crisis. We need to do it again. There will be sacrifices that have to be made, but we are going to do this efficiently, but we've got to do it fast.
Do you think, Mr. Townsend, that Russia is not the only threat? It's the most immediate one to Europe, or at least that's how it's perceived. But there is a piece today in the Sunday Telegraph how Chinese warships encircle Austria without Canberra noticing. In a highly unusual move, 3 Chinese naval vessels dubbed Task Group 107, including various frigates and cruisers, were conducting exercises in Australia's exclusive economic zone. I mean, we've got multiple threats on various fronts.
That's right. And those exercises were live fire exercises.
Wow.
They weren't just doing search and rescue.
Yeah.
They were doing live fire, which is a signal in and of itself. Certainly, Beijing is looking on what's happening in the United States and licking their chops when it's looking at Taiwan. There is no doubt in Beijing's mind that given the White House and where the White House is, there's not going to be a response to some type of Beijing action against Taiwan, a blockade, whatever it is. That's not where the United States is right now, all of a sudden jumping into fighting the Chinese over Taiwan. Beijing sees this, and that's why they're doing this pushing, including with Australia, while the U.S. is dealing with Europe, while Trump is trying to figure himself out in terms of spheres of influence and what a deal he can make with China. The Chinese are looking on this as an opportunity, and we're seeing signs of that.
Thank you very much indeed, Jim Townsend there, former Deputy Secretary of Defence for Europe and NATO.